I had lived what anyone would call a golden life. For 80 years Alara Vance believed I was the favorite child of fortune. Born into the sprawling Vance empire, an only child drenched in the unwavering adoration of my parents, my path was never just paved with gold, it was made of it. I slid seamlessly from a privileged childhood into the CEO's chair of our global corporation, my ascension as smooth and inevitable as the sunrise. My personal life seemed equally blessed. I married Leo, the boy my family had sponsored since he was a destitute orphan. It was a match that felt both kind and convenient. He was handsome, ambitious, and understood the world I came from. He never once pressured me about having children, respecting my choice to focus on the business. Instead, we adopted a girl we named Clara. She was a sweet, quiet child who grew into a brilliant, obedient woman. She attended a top-tier university and, under my careful guidance, stepped into the company, poised to inherit everything. My life was a straight, sunlit road, free from the potholes of illness or catastrophe. It wasn't until my 70s that my body finally began to fail, confining me to a wheelchair. But even then, I considered myself lucky. I had wealth, a loving family, and a legacy secured. My 80th birthday was meant to be the final, glittering crown on a perfect life. The house was filled with flowers and the hollow well-wishes of business associates. But as the last guest departed, Leo and Clara did not wheel me to my suite. Instead, the elevator carried us up, past my floor, to the rooftop. The night air was cold, a sharp contrast to the stifling warmth of the party below. The city lights twinkled like a bed of distant, indifferent stars. "What is this?" I asked, my voice thin against the wind. "A nightcap with a view?" Leo's grip on my wheelchair tightened. His face, so familiar and beloved, was a mask of cold contempt. Clara stood beside him, her expression equally alien, her eyes gleaming with a hatred I could not comprehend. "It's for Lila," Leo said, his voice a low snarl. Lila. The name was a ghost from the past. A girl I had sponsored through school, a charity case who had faded from my memory decades ago. Lila? What about her? "If it weren't for you," Leo spat, leaning down so his face was level with mine, "I would have been with Lila long ago. You were so impossibly rich, Alara. Why couldn't you spare a little? Just a little, so she could have kept our baby? If you had given her the money, she wouldn't have had to drop out. She wouldn't have died alone in that filthy rented room, bleeding out in childbirth." The words hit me like physical blows. Lila? His baby? The world tilted on its axis. "I've held this in for years," he whispered, his breath a foul cloud in the cold air. "Just for today. I'm going to make you feel exactly what Lila went through back then." I turned my disbelieving gaze to Clara, the daughter I had cherished, whose every skinned knee I had kissed, whose every dream I had funded. "Clara? How could you? I've given you everything. I treated you as my own flesh and blood. I handed you my life's work." The daughter I had painstakingly raised stared at me with venom in her eyes. "You are not my mother. This is all your fault. You refused to give my real mother the money. If it weren't for you, she'd still be alive. Why should I recognize you as my mother? You deserve all of this." I was stunned into silence. The betrayal was so absolute, so meticulously planned that it felt unreal. Leo laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Didn't see that coming, did you? Clara is my daughter. Mine and Lila's. After Lila died, I raised her alone. Thanks to you not wanting kids, I had the perfect excuse to bring her home fair and square. You had it coming, Alara. From now on, everything your family built will be inherited by me and Lila's daughter. I'll dig up your family's graves and make sure your parents can't rest in peace. This is the retribution you earned for refusing to give money. Payback for being a heartless person." The final piece of the horrific puzzle clicked into place. 2 days earlier, Leo had sweet-talked me into signing a new will, leaving everything to Clara, citing my age and wanting to protect her from meddling relatives. I had signed it, a foolish, trusting old woman. In the end, there were no more words. With a coordinated shove, Leo and Clara sent my wheelchair careening toward the rooftop's edge. For a terrifying second, I was airborne, the city lights blurring into streaks of gold. Then nothing. The darkness that followed was not peaceful. I was aware of my own end, of my ashes being unceremoniously tossed into a stinking drainage ditch. I felt the violation as they desecrated my parents' graves, fulfilling Leo's vile promise. A single burning thought consumed whatever was left of my consciousness. If I could do it over, they wouldn't get a single cent from me. I'd like to see whether the two of them could even scrape together enough money to buy baby formula. I awoke with a jolt, my heart hammering against my ribs. The air was not cold and final, but warm and thick with the smell of chalk dust and adolescent perfume. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. I was slumped at a desk, my hands, smooth, young, and unblemished by age, clutching the edges of a textbook. I was in a classroom. Disoriented, I looked around. Teenagers in uniforms chatted and laughed, their faces fresh and unfamiliar. Clock on the wall told me it was just after 2 in the afternoon. My body thrummed with a vitality I hadn't known in decades. This wasn't the feeble shell of an 80-year-old, this was the body of a girl. A memory, sharp and clear, sliced through the fog. The rooftop. Leo's sneer. Clara's hatred. The fall. I've been reborn. The realization was not a gentle dawn but a thunderclap. I looked at the date on a discarded newspaper on a nearby desk. It was a day I remembered. The first semester of my senior year of high school. Over 60 years in the past. A strange duality settled over me. The mind was that of Alara Vance, an octogenarian who had lived a full life and suffered a brutal betrayal. But the spirit, the raw driving force, was that of a furious young woman, tempered by the knowledge of what was to come. My past life's experiences were a heavy, bitter sediment in my soul, but this young body's hormones and energy were a potent, clarifying filter. I was both the wise, wounded elder and the vengeful youth. The bell rang for break, shattering my reverie. Students spilled into the hallway. Moving on autopilot, I slipped out, my legs strong and sure beneath me. I found a payphone at the end of the corridor, my fingers trembling as I dialed the number I knew by heart. "Mom," I said, my voice a young, clear version of my own. "Alara? Sweetheart, is everything all right? You sound strange." My mother's voice, alive and vibrant, brought a lump to my throat. In my previous life, their graves had been dug up on the orders of the man I called my husband. "I'm fine, Mom. But I need you and Dad to do something for me right now." "No questions." "What is it, darling?" "You know you can tell us anything. I need you to stop all financial support for Leo. And for Lila. Effective immediately. Cancel all the transfers, revoke the tuition payments. Everything." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "Alara, why? Leo is practically part of the family. And Lila is a good student, she..." "Please, Mom," I insisted, my voice firm, belying the storm inside me. "Trust me on this. It's important. It's about our family's safety. I can't explain right now, but you have to do this." My parents, for all their wealth and power, had always been fiercely protective. Hearing the unshakable conviction in my voice, my mother relented. "All right, sweetheart. If you feel that strongly about it, I'll call the bank and the school right now. Your father will handle it." "Thank you," I breathed, the tension in my shoulders easing slightly. The first domino had been pushed. "Are you sure you're not being bullied?" My father's voice came on the line, gruff with concern. "If anyone is giving you trouble, you tell me. You don't have to endure anything alone." Hearing his voice, so full of love and strength, made the anger surge anew. In my previous life, I had misjudged people so catastrophically that even in death, I had brought dishonor and desecration upon my parents. Never again. "I'm fine, Dad. I'll handle it myself." Just remember to cut off their funding. I hung up, leaning my forehead against the cool metal of the phone booth. The deed was done. The golden leash that had kept Leo and Lila tethered to me and ultimately led to my doom had been severed. I returned to class, the familiar surroundings now a battlefield. I was playing a game of chess where I was the only one who knew all the moves in advance. Calm, strategic mind of my 80-year-old self was now housed in the body of a 17-year-old heiress. It was a formidable combination. That afternoon, a head popped into the classroom. "Alara, someone's looking for you outside." Cold smile touched my lips. Right on schedule. I walked to the doorway and there she was. Lila. She was wearing our school uniform, the pleated skirt doing little to hide the slight but unmistakable swell of her belly. Her eyes, wide and doe-like, darted around nervously before settling on me. She looked every bit the victim. "Alara," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I need to talk to you. Can we go somewhere no one's around?" A single perfect tear traced a path down her cheek. In my last life, I had agreed, led by pity and a sense of responsibility. We had gone to a secluded corner of the library, and when she later dropped out, the rumors had spread like wildfire. Alara Vance bullied a pregnant classmate into leaving school. It had been a stain on my reputation for years, later dug up by business rivals to tarnish the company. This time, I would not be playing the villain in her tragedy. "Sorry," I said, my voice loud and clear, carrying down the hallway. "I'm not interested in talking to you." I turned to go back to my seat. Don't go. Please." Her voice cracked with a sob. And then, with a dramatic flourish, she dropped to her knees, her hands clutching at my skirt. "I'm begging you." The hallway fell silent. All eyes were on us. Perfect. I raised my voice, projecting panic and innocence. "Help. Someone's trying to guilt-trip me. My God, there's even people faking victimhood in high school now? I haven't done a thing. Hurry up and get a teacher. Someone's trying to set me up." My performance had the desired effect. The murmurs started immediately. A few of my classmates, children of other wealthy families who knew me, stepped forward. "Lila, Alara's family is rich, sure, but that's no reason for you to act like this." Hearing the whispers, Lila's face went pale. "I'm not. It's not like that. I just wanted to ask her for help." I took the chance to pull my skirt free from her grip and step back, putting a safe distance between us. The last thing I needed was for her to claim I'd pushed her and caused a miscarriage. "If it's not like that, then stand up," I said coolly. "Who asks for help while kneeling? Looks to me like you're trying to frame me." Reluctantly, humiliated, Lila got to her feet. Her eyes still brimmed with tears, the picture of pitiful grace. "Well," I prompted. "If you want my help, then say it." She glanced at the growing crowd of onlookers, her lips sealed. "Come on, say it," someone jeered. "What? Cat got your tongue." "Yeah, what could be so bad you can't say it in front of everyone?" I held up a hand. "Shut it, all of you," I told them sharply. "Keep talking and she'll drop to her knees again, and then we'll all get accused of bullying her. Don't watch the show so hard you end up part of it." The group fell quiet, but the judgment in their eyes was now directed squarely at Lila. They saw her performance for what it was. When she still didn't speak after a long moment, I turned to leave once more. This finally broke her silence. Can you give me some money?" she blurted out. "Just lend it to me. I just need a few $100,000. Collective gasp rippled through the hallway. A few $100,000? It was an astronomical sum for a teenager. "And why should I give it to you?" I asked, my tone flat. "Because to you, a few $100,000 is just a month's pocket money," she cried, the pitiful act returning. "Why can't you lend it to me?" "Yes, I have money," I replied, my voice echoing in the silent corridor. "But why should I just hand it over to you for no reason?" She clung to her script. If you don't give me the money, I won't take the college entrance exam. Then all the money you've given me before will have been for nothing. I laughed, a short, humorless sound. The same threat, delivered with the same pathetic entitlement. My sponsorship was an act of kindness. Whether you take the exam or not is none of my business. If you don't need it, I'd rather give it to someone who truly does. At least to someone who wouldn't throw away their future by getting pregnant before marriage. The onlookers stared, their expressions a mixture of shock and dawning understanding. My friend Chloe glanced at me with a smirk. Ilara, how'd you end up sponsoring an idiot? An idiot's one thing, I said dryly. But this idiot's also trying to pin something on me. Lila seemed to take offense, her pitiful mask slipping for a second. How can you insult me like that? So what if you have money? Who cares about your money? Fine, I said lightly. Then I'll stop sponsoring you altogether. Since you look down on me, I'll give the money to someone who actually needs it, won't I? You can't do that. That money is mine, she shouted, her true colors flashing. I smiled and hooked my arm through Chloe's. Tell me, what do you think about turning her living expenses into a scholarship fund instead? Chloe thought for a moment. Count me in. Our school was a prestigious private academy, full of the children of the elite, but it also admitted a number of poor, high-achieving students on scholarship. My parents had taught me empathy and the importance of charity, and I had used my allowance to sponsor dozens of them. Most people in the school knew about it. But Rachel had mistaken my kindness for weakness, expecting me to fund her disastrous life choices. She grew frantic. No, you're bullying me. That money is mine. You can't give it to someone else. I ignored her tantrum. All right, then. Stop making a scene. Tell me why you need the money and I'll think about it. You say you need it, so say it. She fell quiet, her eyes darting nervously. Finally, as if she'd made up her mind, she blurted out the truth for all to hear. Because I'm pregnant. I need money to raise the baby. I'm not asking for much, just a few $100,000 so I can give birth. I'll be grateful to you forever. Crowd collectively gasped, their eyes dropping to her stomach. Chloe gave my shoulder a playful pat. Ilara, you really don't check who you sponsor, do you? You'd be better off giving the money to me. At least I wouldn't get knocked up and then come running to you to raise the kid. I knew this was something she'd tease me about for the rest of my life. I told you, give me the money now, Rachel insisted, her voice shrill. Seeing the crowd murmuring, she looked like she wanted to flee, but desperation kept her rooted. You said you'd think about it. Thinking about it means you'll give it, right? No, I said flatly. Her face darkened. I already told you why. How can you refuse? I'm pregnant. I need money. How is a girl like me supposed to raise a child without it? I nearly laughed from sheer exasperation. Don't pin your pregnancy on me. I'm not the one who got you pregnant. Why aren't you asking the baby's father for money? What, is the baby mine now? In my past life, I had urged her to end the pregnancy, but she had refused, calling the baby the crystallization of her love. She had chosen to drop out, move into a slum, and had ultimately died, leaving her child to become my adopted daughter. This time, I would not be raising her child. I would not be providing the stage for their tragic play. You're too much, she cried. How can you humiliate me like this? You're just jealous of me. That's why you won't help. Chloe snapped back for me. Girl, if your brain's got problems, get it checked. You're talking about having a baby when you can't even feed yourself. What's the kid supposed to eat? Air. Another classmate chimed in. Yeah. And jealous of what exactly? Jealous that you're in high school, pregnant before marriage with a deadbeat baby daddy and now begging your sponsor for money to have the kid. Just then, as if summoned by the drama, he arrived. Leo. He pushed through the crowd, his face a thundercloud of righteous anger. He grabbed Lila's hand, stepping in front of her like a knight shielding a damsel, and glared at me as if I were the source of all evil. And in that moment I saw it. The look in his eyes wasn't just that of a teenage boy. It was the cold, calculating, and deeply resentful gaze of the man who had pushed me off a rooftop. He had been reborn, too. The game had just become infinitely more interesting. "Samantha," Leo said, his voice dripping with a venom that was far too old for his 17-year-old face. "How can you be so cruel? Lila's just a weak girl, and you're ganging up on her with a whole crowd. This is too much. You're bullying her. Do you have no conscience?" The bystanders, who had only been there for the spectacle, didn't take kindly to that. "Are you out of your mind?" one of them shot back. "She's the one who got pregnant out of wedlock, then came to Samantha asking for money, acting all pitiful like we were bullying her." "Yeah, what's wrong with your eyes and ears?" another added. "Didn't you hear her just say she's trying to guilt-trip people? She's the one doing the guilt-tripping. We're just here watching, not doing a thing." I crossed my arms, meeting Leo's glare with a cool, detached amusement. "You don't know a damn thing about what's going on, yet you jump in to accuse me. Why are you protecting her so much? Don't tell me you're the baby's father." Leo's expression darkened, a flicker of the entitled man he would become warring with the powerless boy he now was. He had probably never been scolded so directly in his previous pampered life. Hearing those words, his chest puffed out with a pathetic bravado. He grabbed Lila's hand. "That's right. I am the baby's father, Samantha," he declared, as if it were a badge of honor. "You'd better hand over the money or don't blame me for not being polite." A slow, deliberate smile spread across my face. "Oh, you're going to rob me now? Listen to yourself." "What? You think I want you to like me or something? Don't flatter yourself. You're crazy. When did I ever like you?" I shot back, erasing any fantasy he might have harbored about my past affections. "And why are you asking me for money? Are you begging? If you've got so much pride, raise the kid yourself. You're the father. Why aren't you paying?" Leo froze, the reality of his situation dawning on him. Then he puffed himself up again. "I don't need your money. I can support both her and the baby just fine." "Good," I said coolly. "Then rest easy. I'm cutting off your sponsorship too." He blinked, clearly taken aback. Decades of being financially coddled had made him forget the fundamental truth. From elementary school onward, I had been his benefactor. His tuition, his clothes, his pocket money, it had all flowed from my family's coffers. Even the funds he'd planned to use to play house with Lila in our previous life had come from the generous monthly allowance I deposited into his account. Without it, he'd be struggling to buy a meal next month. I saw the flicker of panic in his eyes. But when he glanced back at Lila, who was looking at him with tearful admiration, he forced himself to act tough. "Don't give it. I'm a grown man. Like, I need your money. I'll just get a job to support her and the baby." I clapped slowly, the sound echoing in the hallway. "Touching. Let's see how long this so-called love lasts once it runs into grocery bills and utility payments." Just then, a teacher arrived, drawn by the commotion. After a few sharp questions, she took both a weeping Lila and a fuming Leo away. The show was over for now. Later, their parents were called in. The fallout was swift and brutal. Lila's parents, humiliated and furious, slapped Leo's mother several times right outside the principal's office. They dragged Lila out, demanding she get an abortion, but she refused, screaming that she would rather sever ties with them than give up her love. Her parents, hearts broken and faces shamed, swore they would never care about her again. Leo's father had died when he was young, and his mother had worked herself to the bone, cleaning offices and taking in sewing to raise her son, pinning all her hopes on him. When she learned that her brilliant boy had gotten a girl pregnant in high school, throwing away the full-ride scholarship my sponsorship had practically guaranteed, the shock and rage were too much for her weak heart. She collapsed on the spot and died almost instantly. After her funeral, Leo, unshaven and wild-eyed, stormed into my classroom. "Was this on purpose?" he shouted, pointing a trembling finger at me. "It's all your fault my mom died. I'm telling you, I'm never breaking up with Lila. My mom's gone, and you owe me at least $2 million in compensation, not a cent less." The sheer, unhinged audacity of it almost took my breath away. "You're insane," I said flatly. "Don't you deny it," he snapped. "If it weren't for you, my mom wouldn't have known. It's all because of you." I saw the teacher coming down the hall and didn't bother arguing, simply letting them drag him away, his screams of injustice fading down the corridor. Leo and Lila both seemed to thrive on the narrative that the whole world was against their epic love, that they were tragically right and everyone else was monstrously wrong. They relished the feeling of fighting for their love against the world. Well, that had nothing to do with me. If they wanted to keep it up, fine. I asked my parents for a few discreet bodyguards. Leo tried to confront me once after school, but he was intercepted before he could get within 20 feet of me. With no source of income left, the two lovebirds had to face the cold, hard reality of work. Lila was too physically weak for any kind of heavy labor, and Leo, playing the gallant protector, couldn't bear to see her struggle. So he worked alone, juggling a series of low-wage part-time jobs to support them both. First, he barely managed, his grades plummeting as he struggled to stay awake in class. But as Lila's pregnancy progressed, the doctor recommended better nutrition. She couldn't survive on instant noodles and cheap bread, and there were also various medical checkup costs, a few hundred here and there. Before long, the expenses of Lila's pregnancy far exceeded what Leo could earn from his meager earnings. The pressure mounted. The arguments began. In the end, he made the choice he thought would solve everything. He dropped out of school altogether to work full-time and support his burgeoning family. He was convinced that with his talent and memories from his past life, he could easily land a high-paying job or make a fortune through clever investments. But he had forgotten a crucial detail. Right now, he was just an underage high school dropout with no degree, no connections, and no resources. He dreamed of investing in the promising tech startups he remembered from our previous life, but soon realized he had no capital, no contacts, and no way to get a foot in the door. With nothing to work with, his grand ambitions crumbled to dust. He was reduced to manual labor, hauling boxes and washing dishes, scraping together just enough money to keep a roof over their heads, all the while dreaming of the day he would make a comeback and make me pay for everything. Then, just days before the college entrance exam that would have been their ticket out, Lila went into labor. This time Leo, remembering the tragedy of her death, had prepared in advance and took her to the hospital. Both mother and child were safe. But Lila, of course, missed the exam entirely. And with the birth of their daughter, whom they named Iris, their troubles had only just begun. The baby Iris was a demanding, fragile thing. In my last life, Leo had hired a nanny, and I had later taken the child in, providing the best of everything. But now, without money, they had to do everything themselves. Since Leo was working all hours, the relentless burden of childcare fell entirely on Lila. Lila was still just a girl herself, a teenager who had romanticized motherhood without understanding its brutal, unglamorous reality. No one had ever taught her how to be a mother. She had to figure everything out on her own through sleep-deprived, tear-filled nights. The baby cried incessantly, and every couple of hours, little Iris needed feeding and a diaper change, leaving Lila no time to rest, no moment for herself. During her postpartum month, Lila had no one to care for her. To save on medical costs, Leo had checked her out of the hospital early. Her body, deprived of proper rest and nutrition, never recovered properly. She developed a host of chronic issues, back pain that flared up whenever she sat for too long, and other more humiliating postpartum problems that she could never bring herself to speak of. While scouring the internet for childcare tips, she inevitably saw posts from other new mothers, women surrounded by doting partners and supportive parents living in comfortable homes, their biggest worry being which organic baby formula to choose. Their lives were a stark, painful contrast to her own, facing poverty and exhaustion alone, having to ration her baby's diapers, counting every penny just to get through the week. One day her phone, a cheap prepaid model, buzzed. It was an old friend from school. "Lila, I've got my own phone now. How have you been lately?" "Guess what? I got into college, a bachelor's program. My mom finally agreed to buy me a phone and even gave me a few thousand to go travel and relax. So I'm only just now contacting you. Want to come along? Oh, by the way, you're such a good student. What university did you get into? I heard your school has this program where the top 10 students get their entire tuition covered and even get a cash bonus. You're always in the top few, right? I'm so jealous. You don't even have to pay your own way." Lila couldn't answer a single question. She mumbled a vague excuse and hung up under her friend's puzzled tone. She sat on the floor of their shabby apartment, the sounds of the city filtering through the thin walls. Her old friends had just finished their exams, enjoying their long vacations, dreaming about college life and the freedom that awaited them. She, on the other hand, hadn't even taken the exam. Felt like everyone else was sprinting happily toward a bright future while she was trapped in a miserable dead-end life with a screaming baby and a resentful boyfriend. A life with no future. She started to regret it. Was having this baby the right choice? When faced with the noisy, demanding child, she no longer felt the rush of maternal affection, only a growing, gnawing resentment. She began to think the baby had ruined her life. If not for Iris, she could be happily preparing for college like everyone else her age. She had been in the top 10 of her grade. She could have gotten into a great university, found a good job, had a real future. She started imagining, what if I didn't have this baby? What if I had never met Leo? What if I were still in school? But life had to go on, and poverty always breeds friction. The arguments with Leo became a daily ritual. They were no longer about love and dreams, but about money and survival. One day, Leo came home from a double shift, exhausted and reeking of grease from the kitchen he worked in. He found Lila looking at a cheap new blouse she had bought from a thrift store. "I'm working my ass off out there to make money and you just throw it away," he snarled, his voice rough with fatigue. "Don't you already have clothes? Why do you need to buy new ones?" Lila shot back, her own frustration boiling over. "What's that supposed to mean? I just bought one piece of clothing. Can I even do that? I haven't bought anything for myself in months. And besides, my body's changed since I had the baby. The old clothes didn't fit anymore, so I bought new ones." "They don't fit?" "That's just an excuse," Leo shot back, parroting words he'd probably heard in his past life directed at me. Hearing that, Lila's anger flared. "You're only treating me like this because I had your baby. You weren't like this before. You promised you'd treat me well. I gave up the college entrance exam for you. If it weren't for you, I'd be getting ready to go to university right now." Leo got even angrier. His grades had been good too. And with the memories from his previous life, he felt like Lila owed him. After all, she wasn't the only one who had given things up. He had given up being with me, given up a place at a prestigious university, given up the life of wealth and privilege he'd once had. The more he thought about it, the more furious he became. "Yeah, I am doing this on purpose," he sneered, the mask of the loving boyfriend finally slipping completely. "If you don't like it, you can leave. But where would you go? Your parents already disowned you, and you've got no money. Go on, try it. See if you don't come crawling back in less than a day." Lila couldn't believe the man she loved could speak to her like that. Crying, she ran back to the single bedroom, slammed the door and covered her ears, trying to block out the sound of the baby crying outside and the sound of Leo throwing things in the kitchen. But she stayed. She had nowhere else to go. Later, Lila told Leo she wanted to repeat her senior year and take the college entrance exam. He refused outright. "If you go back to school, who's going to take care of the baby?" he demanded. In the end, she didn't go. Her dream of an education died, replaced by the grim monotony of diapers and debt. In her painful, isolated life with no one to understand her, Lila found a dangerous escape. She started spending her evenings at a friend's apartment where people played cards for money. First, it was just casual, a way to pass the time and feel a flicker of excitement. But later, through these friends, she got into real gambling. She secretly took money from the grocery budget Leo gave her to play. She lost at first, but thinking she'd win it back in just one more round, she ended up winning a small pot. The rush was addictive. And from then on, she couldn't stop. Their love, once a fiery rebellion, deteriorated into a bitter codependency, replaced by constant arguments over missing money and neglected responsibilities. In this life, their daughter's name was Iris, as Leo had wanted in his heart. He thought he'd gotten his wish, living with his biological child and the ghost of the woman he claimed to love. But Lila didn't like the baby. She saw Iris not as a daughter, but as the chain that bound her to this miserable existence, and she had no interest in caring for her. Even feeding Iris depended entirely on Lila's mood. The baby only survived thanks to the fractured memories from her past life and Leo's sporadic care when he was home. Lila didn't understand why Leo was so attentive to Iris, but she didn't care. So long as he kept bringing home money for her to gamble with, she could tolerate it. All the money Leo earned, every sweaty, hard-earned dollar, went straight into Lila's gambling fund, with barely a pittance spent on their child. And Leo, meanwhile, had long been thinking about dumping Lila and coming to beg for my forgiveness. He was already dreaming of a way back into my good graces, so he could return to being my pampered husband. He figured that since I had no biological children, I'd have to adopt Iris, and she'd inherit my company. Out of love for the child, he reasoned, I'd have to forgive him, and then all the wealth and glory would be his again. But Iris, the key to his plan, didn't want to come to me. She was determined to stay with Lila. With memories from her past life, she remembered that Lila had died young giving birth to her. Combined with Leo's lifelong teachings about her saintly real mother, she had built up an idealized, perfect image of Lila in her mind. She believed none of my efforts for her in our previous life could compare to the pure, unconditional love Lila would have given her, and that I had only ever raised her for the sake of having an heir. In her mind, Lila truly loved her. And if Lila had lived, she would have been a gentler, more loving mother than I could ever be. So in this life, at the start, Iris clung to Lila and refused to leave, holding very high expectations for her. She was in for a devastating awakening. Iris's devotion to her biological mother was a fortress built on a foundation of grief and Leo's poisonous lies. In her mind, Lila was a tragic angel, a figure of pure love whose life was cut short by my callousness. She believed that in this new life, she could finally experience that perfect, unconditional maternal love she had been denied. Reality, however, was a brutal wrecking ball. Lila's actions shattered those illusions completely. Not only did she fail to care for Iris, but when she lost at gambling, she would take her frustration out on the child. The mother Iris had fantasized about was replaced by a haggard, bitter stranger who saw her as a burden. "It's all because of you, you little brat," Lila would snarl, her breath smelling of cheap beer, her eyes glazed with loss and resentment. "That I've ended up like this. If it weren't for you, I'd be a top student. Why would I have to gamble to make money? Why aren't you dead yet?" Iris, trapped in the body of a small child, could only endure the abuse in silence. She was just a little girl, but behind her eyes was the consciousness of my former adopted daughter, Clara. She still held on to a shred of hope, convinced that she must be the problem. She told herself that if she just tried harder, was quieter, more helpful, her mother would see her love and start to like her, start treating her well. But it never happened. No matter how obedient Iris was, Lila still saw her as the anchor dragging her down. One time, Iris developed a high fever, her small body shaking with chills. She stumbled into the main room where Lila was counting a few crumpled bills. "Mom," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I don't feel good. Can you buy me some medicine?" Lila didn't even look up. "Get lost. You're faking it. So what if you have a fever? Just tough it out. It'll pass." she snapped before storming out, heading to a clandestine card game, leaving her sick child alone. In the end, it was Leo who came home hours later and found Iris delirious on the floor. He scooped her up and took her to a free clinic, his face a mask of grim exhaustion. The disparity between the mother she had imagined and the mother she had was a chasm that was beginning to crack her spirit. When Iris was about to start elementary school, she gathered her courage and asked Lila for money to buy books. Lila wouldn't give it. Leo grew angry. "I give you so much money every month. Where is it all going? You don't make that much. Look at how much the guy next door brings home." "If there's no money, then there's no money," Lila shot back, her voice defensive and sharp. Leo, furious, raised his hand to hit her. It was the first time Iris had seen such raw violence in his eyes. Iris jumped in the way, a small shield. "Dad, don't hit Mom. I can collect trash myself to pay for school books." The argument ended with the family splitting in bitter silence. True to her word, Iris started running around the neighborhood every day after that, collecting cans and bottles from garbage bins, her small hands getting dirty as she saved up coin by coin for her books. But when she finally scraped together enough, hiding the small stash of cash under a loose floorboard, Lila found it. "Mom, that's the money for my books," Iris pleaded, her voice trembling as Lila pocketed the cash. "The teacher's expecting it." "What book money?" Layla sneered. "Your money is my money. Can't study without books?" "When I was in school, I didn't have money for books either. I borrowed from classmates and still did fine. Get out of my way. I'm in a good mood today. Don't make me hit you." Iris could only watch, heartbroken, as Lila walked away. She felt a flicker of something new, not just hurt but a cold, sharp sense of betrayal. But she still refused to accept the truth, telling herself it was all her own fault that her mother didn't love her because she wouldn't give her money. Lila's gambling spiraled further out of control. The small losses became big ones. The arguments with Leo became constant, screaming matches that echoed through their thin-walled apartment, with Iris huddling in a corner, hands over her ears. Eventually, Lila even lost the family's shabby rented room. When her debtors, hard-faced men with cold eyes, closed in, she panicked. Iris watched as her mother grabbed the last valuables in the home, a small television and the cheap silver locket Leo had given Iris on her last birthday, and prepared to run. "Mom," Iris asked, her small voice filled with terror. "Where are you going?" "Get out of my way." Lila shoved her aside. "If I don't leave now, it'll be too late. They'll kill me." "Mom," Iris whispered, the truth dawning on her with horrifying clarity. "Are you leaving me?" Lila paused at the door, turning back for a single final glance. There was no love in her eyes, only a frantic need for survival. "Keeping you has already ruined my whole life. Why the hell would I want you?" And with that, she was gone. Iris stood there, alone in the middle of the empty, dusty room. The sound of the slamming door echoed in the silence. She called Leo, her voice a numb whisper telling him to come back. But soon after he arrived, the door burst open. It wasn't Lila. It was a group of debt collectors. They threw their meager belongings into the hall and shoved the two of them out, changing the locks. They were homeless. After my own college entrance exams, I donated all the money I had originally planned to use to sponsor Lila and Leo, plus a significant portion of my allowance and a bonus from my parents, to create a new scholarship fund for high-achieving students. A few of my friends, when they heard about it, also donated generously. The school even held a small ceremony. It was a clean, public severance, and it felt good. I went to university, and after graduation, just like in my previous life, I took over the family company. But this time, armed with decades of experience and foresight, I navigated the business world with an ease that stunned my board of directors. I made bold, prescient investments and avoided pitfalls I remembered all too well. The Vance empire didn't just thrive. It expanded, its roots growing deeper and its branches wider than ever before. I built my own life, separate from the ghost of my past. I enjoyed my wealth and my freedom, the shadow of Leo and Lila a distant, fading nightmare. One day, years later, my assistant's voice came through the intercom, laced with a hint of distaste. "Ms. Vance, there's a man and a child here to see you. They're rather insistent. They say you know them. His name is Leo." Cold, smooth smile touched my lips. So they had finally crawled out of the woodwork. I had been waiting for this. "Send them up," I instructed, my voice calm. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of my corner office, looking down at the city that was, in many ways, mine. When the door opened, I turned slowly. The sight was almost pitiable. Leo looked decades older than he was. His clothes were worn and thin, his face etched with lines of hardship and defeat. And beside him was Iris. She was painfully thin, her clothes tattered and too small. Her face, which should have been round with childhood, was gaunt and covered in faint, yellowing bruises. She favored one leg when she walked, a slight but noticeable limp. The moment her eyes met mine, the bitterness in them was so potent it seemed to sour the air. This was not a child's gaze. It was the look of Clara, my betrayer. "This is all your fault," she said, her young voice layered with an ancient resentment. "You ruined my dad and my mom. They shouldn't have ended up like this. You already had the lesson from your past life. Why still refuse to give them money?" I smiled. My adopted daughter had returned, and her entitlement had only festered in the gutter. "Isn't this what you wanted this time?" I asked pleasantly. "I never interfered." "Liar," she spat. "If it weren't for you, Mom wouldn't hate Dad or me. In my last life, she was willing to die for me. Dad said Mom loved him. Mom was a gentle, beautiful woman. If she were alive, she'd definitely be kind to me. But now she's just a useless gambler. It's all because of you that she became like this." I couldn't help but laugh, a soft, chilling sound. "So now it's my fault she got into gambling? And what exactly can you do about it? Besides, why would she love you? You ruined her future. Just like you, she's been romanticizing things that never actually happened. Of course, she thinks she'd be better off without you, so yes, you feel justified in hating me, but in that case, don't you think she'd hate you too?" Iris's face went a pasty white. My words had struck the fragile core of her delusion. She lowered her head, holding back tears of rage and shame. Leo, seeing how sharply I was dismantling their narrative, pulled Iris closer. "Iris, hurry and apologize to your mom." He looked at me, his eyes pleading, but I could see the calculation behind them. "Samantha, I was wrong. For the child's sake, can't you forgive us?" Iris looked at me with pure hatred, but on the surface she behaved with a twisted obedience. "I'm sorry, Mom. Mom, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I'll take good care of you from now on." Even now, at rock bottom, they were still clinging to their delusions, still trying to play the same old game. "You two really have something wrong with your heads," I said, my voice flat and final. "Why should I accept your apology?" Leo, seeing my unyielding attitude, actually seemed irritated, as if I were the one being unreasonable. "Samantha, stop being so stubborn. If you don't leave your property to Iris, who else would you give it to? You're not going to have children. Who would even marry you? And even if you adopted someone else, the inheritance would still go to an outsider. So why not give it to Iris? She calls you Mom after all. In your last life, you raised her for so many years. Could you really bear to see her suffer out there? Don't go too far. We've already apologized. If we can go back to the way things were, I promise I'll treat you well this time." Iris lifted her head and glared at me, the mask of obedience slipping. "That's right. Keep this up. And when I inherit the estate, I'll throw you in a nursing home. You've got no children of your own. Wouldn't you have to rely on me? Everything in your family will be mine. If you treat me better now, I'll remember your kindness." He wasn't wrong about one thing. I truly didn't plan to have children or adopt again. The very idea was repulsive. But I smiled at the two ungrateful wolves in front of me. Leo, you're right that I don't plan to have kids, and I'm not adopting anymore either. Leo's eyes lit up. A smug, triumphant smile tugged at his lips. He thought he had one. He thought I was admitting defeat. Until I added, but ever since I came back, I've asked my parents for a sibling. My little brother and sister are already in kindergarten. My family's wealth doesn't need you to inherit it. You're dreaming too big and it's not going to happen. Color drained from Leo's face. He shot to his feet, panic flashing in his eyes. That's impossible. How could you do this? What about Iris? What about me? Iris's expression twisted with primal fear. The last pillar of her imagined future crumbled to dust. Mom, how could you give my money away? I was wrong. I'll never do it again. Please, please don't abandon me. You're lying, right? You're just saying that to scare me. To shatter their fantasy once and for all, I picked up my phone and made a video call. In moments, two cheerful, bright-eyed faces filled the screen. Big sis, they chimed in unison. When are you coming home? I miss you so much. Me too. I miss you more than he does. No, I'm the one who misses you the most. The voices of my little brother and sister rang out clearly in the plush silence of my office. Leo and Iris went completely pale, their faces drained of the last vestiges of hope. Proof was irrefutable. Their last desperate gamble had failed. Called security. Throw them out. They tried to resist, Leo shouting about fairness and Iris screaming curses that were far too old for her body, but they were no match for the professional guards. They were dragged away, their cries fading into the elevator shaft. Then I made one more call. I passed their location to the debt collectors who were still hunting for Lila. Take good care of the two of them, I said softly. Especially the man. From then on, they could only live their lives running. The world did not become kind to Leo and Iris after they were thrown from my office. If anything, it became sharper, more brutal. The debt collectors I had pointed in their direction were not gentle men. They were sharks who had caught the scent of blood, and Leo was the only tangible asset left connected to Lila's debts. Their life became a frantic, rootless scramble. They moved from one grimy, pay-by-the-week motel to another, always one step ahead of the thugs who would show up to demand payment with fists and threats. Leo's already meager earning potential evaporated. No one would hire a man who looked so haunted and desperate, who had to leave at a moment's notice. Iris, who housed the mind of my once pampered daughter, was forced to grow up in the most squalid conditions imaginable. The memories of her previous life, of private tutors, designer clothes, and a future as the heiress to the Vance empire, were a constant, torturous mockery. The disparity between what she felt she deserved and the reality of scavenging for food in dumpsters was a psychological acid that ate away at her sanity. She began to blame Leo, not just for their circumstances, but for the fundamental flaw in his plan. You said she would have to take me back, she would shriek at him in the darkness of another rented room. You said I was her only heir. You're useless. A failure. Leo, broken and hollowed out, had no defense. The man who had once plotted a multi-million-dollar inheritance from a rooftop had been reduced to a trembling wreck. The memories of his past life were no longer a weapon. They were a curse, a gallery of every luxury he had lost. The final blow came when he managed to land a short-lived dishwashing job, only to be recognized by the manager, a man who had once been a junior executive at a company Leo had presided over in his previous life. The public humiliation, the sneer, the "how the mighty have fallen" comment, shattered the last of his spirit. He couldn't take it anymore. The running, the fear, the hunger, the weight of his daughter's contempt, and the ghost of the life he had thrown away. One night, in a particularly foul motel room that smelled of mildew and despair, he gave up. He left a brief, incoherent note blaming me for everything, and then he hanged himself with a belt from the room's flimsy closet. When Iris found him, something in her finally snapped. The last tether to any kind of reality, however grim, was severed. I had someone retrieve the body. There was no funeral. I had his remains unceremoniously cremated, and just as he had done to me in another lifetime, I had his ashes dumped into a foul, stinking cesspit on the outskirts of the city. The symmetry was perfect. The circle was complete. As for Iris, she was truly alone now. The debt collectors, finding Leo dead and of no more use, lost interest in her. But by then it was too late. The damage was irreversible. The young girl, haunted by the consciousness of a bitter old woman, wandered out into the streets and never really came back. Her mind broke cleanly. She became a fixture on the streets, a ghost child with wild, unseeing eyes. She would wander the affluent districts, the ones she remembered from her past life, approaching well-dressed women and tugging on their sleeves. "Mom," she would ask, her voice a hollow echo. "Mom, are you my mom? I'll be good. I promise." She lived in a perpetual heartbreaking present, forever searching for the mother she had idealized and then lost twice over, first to death and then to her own cruel nature. She was a living monument to their greed and my vengeance. With Leo and Iris gone from my life in every way that mattered, a profound and quiet peace settled over me. The frantic, burning need for revenge that had fueled my second youth had been satisfied, leaving behind not emptiness but a serene clarity. I had purged the poison of my first life. I continued to lead the Vance Corporation, but my drive was different now. It was no longer about proving a point or securing a legacy out of fear. It was about building something robust and beautiful for its own sake. I enjoyed the challenge, the chess game of international business, but I kept it in perspective. It was a part of my life, not the entirety of it. I traveled to places I had only ever seen in reports. I cultivated hobbies I never had time for before: painting, learning the cello, sailing. I enjoyed the freedom that my wealth and foresight afforded me, the freedom to simply live without the shadow of betrayal looming over me. I watched with a deep, quiet joy as my younger brother and sister grew. I made a conscious effort to be a real part of their lives, not a distant benefactor sister. I read them bedtime stories over video call when I was away, attended their school plays, and helped them with their science projects. I was determined that they would know family as a source of unwavering support, not a nest of vipers. When my brother Ethan showed a keen, sharp mind for finance, I mentored him myself. When my sister Amelia revealed a passionate, almost poetic love for our brand's history and narrative, I gave her the reins to our global marketing division. They were not my heirs in a grim, obligatory sense. They were my partners, my family, the vibrant, trustworthy future I had ensured. The years passed, smooth and golden. When Ethan turned 30, a confident and brilliant leader in his own right, I knew it was time. I called him and Amelia into my office, the same one where I had confronted Leo and Iris a lifetime ago. "It's yours," I said simply, pushing a folder across the desk. "The company. The foundation. All of it. I'm stepping down." They were stunned, of course. They protested, saying I was too young, that I was the heart of the empire. I laughed, a genuine light sound. "I've been the CEO of this company for the better part of 2 lifetimes, I said, which was true in a way only I could understand. "It's your turn. I have a vineyard in Tuscany I've been neglecting, and a cello that deserves more of my attention." Transition was seamless. The business press wrote glowing profiles about the Vance dynasty, and its smooth transfer of power to the incredibly capable next generation. There was no intrigue, no coup, only a family passing the torch with love and respect. Now, as I write this, I am sitting on the terrace of my villa, looking out over the rolling hills of my vineyard. The sun is warm on my skin, and the air smells of earth and ripening grapes. In the distance, I can hear the faint, melodic strains of Amelia practicing the violin. She had taken it up after I started the cello. I have everything. I have my health, my freedom, my peace. I have a family that loves me and a legacy that is secure in the best possible hands. The ghosts of the past have been silenced, their ashes scattered to the filth where they belong. My first life was a gilded cage, ending in a brutal murder. My second life was a strategic war ending in total victory. But this is living. This is the life I was truly meant to have, earned not by luck, but by the ruthless pruning of the poisonous weeds that had once threatened to choke it. And it is sweeter than I ever could have imagined. The end.
George, I've got good news and bad news. Which do you want to hear first? I put down my paintbrush and looked at my friend Frank. He stood at the studio door with a mysterious air, his face a mix of nervousness and excitement. Let's start with the bad news. After all, I've gotten used to it these past 3 years. Your painting, Eternity, just sold for a sky-high price. Over $6 million. I frowned. How is that bad news? Frank chuckled. Because it's actually part of the good news. The bad news is, buddy, you might need to see a psychiatrist. What do you mean? A woman who looks exactly like Mary showed up at your art exhibition. I almost thought I was seeing a ghost. The paintbrush slipped from my hand and fell to the floor, splattering paint across the unfinished canvas. Mary, my late wife, died 3 years ago after accidentally falling off a cliff. I watched with my own eyes as her body was pulled from the water. In that moment, my world completely collapsed. Stop joking around, Frank. Why would I lie to you? She even left this. Frank handed me a note, with an address and a time written on it. My hand trembled slightly. The handwriting was exactly the same as Mary's. That night, I waited until midnight at the designated cafe. Just as I was about to leave, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Mary? No, it couldn't be her. But every gesture of that woman, from the tips of her hair to her fingertips, was a shadow of Mary. George, it's been a long time. She sat across from me, and the familiar voice nearly made my heart stop. Who are you? I struggled to remain calm. I'm Mary, your wife. She smiled and reached out her hand. There was a scar on her palm, the mark Mary got when she accidentally cut herself on glass at 15. Impossible. Mary is already dead. She laughed softly. That was just an accident. I fell off the cliff and was saved by a reclusive old doctor. I lost my memory from the injuries and only recently remembered everything. As she spoke, tears began to fall with an expression I knew all too well, the look Mary wore whenever she felt wronged. I know it's hard to believe, but I really am Mary. I couldn't believe my eyes. The shade of lipstick Mary loved most, the faint little mole beneath her left ear, the unconscious habit of rubbing her ring while speaking. Everything was so familiar. Are you really Mary? She nodded and took a small box out of her bag. This is the proof. Inside the box was the first piece of jewelry Mary ever designed. A sapphire ring, the only one of its kind, never mass-produced. I brought it with me that day because I wanted to surprise you. I suddenly stood up and pulled her into my arms. 3 years of longing surged over me like a tide. I held her tightly, afraid that if I let go, she would disappear again. On the way home, she told me about her experiences over the past 3 years. She was rescued by an old doctor in the mountains, lost her memory due to a severe head injury, and lived in a remote mountain village for more than 2 years. It wasn't until she happened to see a poster for my art exhibition that her memory gradually returned. The next day, I took her to see Frank. Oh my God, it really is you, Mary. Frank stared in astonishment, eyes wide. Frank, it's been a long time. She greeted him with a smile, exactly as I remembered. Frank pulled me aside and whispered, Man, this is unbelievable, but I really believe it's her. Who else but Mary could call me by my childhood nickname so accurately? That was something only the two of you knew. A week later, Mary officially returned. We held a small welcome party for her. Her mother was so overwhelmed that she fainted, and when she woke up, she clung to her daughter and refused to let go. But that night, I noticed the first sign that something was off. Mary never ate mangoes because she was severely allergic. Yet the returned Mary absent-mindedly tasted a mango dessert and was perfectly fine. Aren't you allergic to mangoes? I asked. She paused for a moment, then quickly laughed and said, Oh, that old Chinese doctor cured my allergy. He's really amazing. I nodded, but in my heart, I marked the first question mark. Is this really my wife? A month passed quickly, and Mary blended perfectly into our lives. She knew the location of every item in the house, remembered our shared memories, and could even accurately name friends we hadn't contacted in years. But those subtle feelings of discord kept growing. For example, the real Mary liked to listen to classical music, especially Debussy, while designing jewelry. But she would always unconsciously hum along to pop songs. Mary always habitually used her left hand to hold chopsticks, even though she knew it was wrong. She just couldn't change. But she was a standard right-handed user. The most obvious difference appeared that night when I accidentally caught her smoking in the bedroom. The real Mary hated the smell of smoke. Even when I came home from social events with a faint scent of cigarettes, she would frown. "When did you start smoking?" I stood at the doorway, my voice soft. She was clearly startled, hastily snuffing out the cigarette. This is a herbal cigarette for treating insomnia, prescribed by an old Chinese doctor." I nodded, not pressing further, but the doubts in my heart only grew deeper. The next day, I went to find Frank. "Help me check if, in the past 3 years, plastic surgery technology has advanced enough to achieve this level." Frank's eyes widened. "You mean, she's not Mary?" "I'm not sure, but there are always some things that don't add up." 2 days later, Frank brought news. High-end plastic surgery can make faces look similar, but it can't replicate the exact placement of scars or moles. And there's a limit to how well someone can imitate a voice. What if it was a twin? Frank shook his head. "Mary is an only child. We all know that." I decided not to show my feelings for now and to keep observing. A week later, Mary's mother came to my house with astonishing news. "George, Mary is going to have a baby," my mother-in-law told me excitedly. I stood there stunned. Before we got married, Mary had been diagnosed with uterine hypoplasia. The doctor had made it clear she could never get pregnant. This was our shared secret. Not even my mother-in-law knew. How do you know that?" I managed to ask. "Mary told me this morning. She said she already had a checkup. It's been 2 months. My mother-in-law happily grabbed my hand. "It's a blessing from above. Mary survived death, and now she can bring us new life." My heart sank to the bottom. This absolutely could not be Mary. That night, I dug out the hospital's diagnosis certificate in my study, which clearly stated the condition of Mary's uterus. But when I wanted to talk to Mary about it, I found her in the bedroom, excitedly discussing the decoration of the nursery with my mother-in-law. "Mary, could you come here for a moment?" I called her calmly. She followed me into the study, still wearing a blissful smile on her face. "Did you forget about this?" I handed her the diagnosis certificate. She took it and glanced at it, her face instantly turning pale. "George, I can explain." "Explain what?" "Explain that you're not Mary at all." Mother-in-law heard the commotion and walked in. "What's going on with you two?" "Mom, take a look at this." I handed her the proof. My mother-in-law read it, then looked at Mary in astonishment. "What's going on?" "Mary, you can't have children." "Of course she can," I sneered, "because she's not Mary at all." My mother-in-law's face changed dramatically. "What nonsense are you talking about?" "I can explain." She hurriedly grabbed my mother-in-law's hand. "That old Chinese doctor not only saved my life, but also cured my uterine problem. It's a miracle, truly." My mother-in-law looked at me, then at her, hesitating. "George, you're being too paranoid." My mother-in-law finally took her daughter's side. "Mary has come back with great difficulty. You should cherish her, not doubt her." "Yes, George, I know this is hard to accept, but miracles do happen." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Haven't we always wanted a child? Now we can finally have our own baby." I looked at her face, identical to Mary's, yet I became more certain in my heart. This woman was not my wife. "All right, I believe you." I smiled, deciding to go along with their story for now. Let's wait together for this miracle to happen. That night, I secretly contacted a private detective. My mother-in-law gladly accepted her daughter's explanation, even suggesting she move in with us to take care of Mary during her pregnancy. Outwardly, I agreed, but inside I grew even more wary. This was no coincidence. There had to be some kind of plot. "Mom, haven't you always lived in Haicheng? Won't it be hard to get used to living here?" I probed cautiously. "For my grandson, I'm willing to endure any inconvenience," my mother-in-law said firmly. I noticed a fleeting unnatural expression on Mary's face. Could the truth be connected to my mother-in-law? On the 3rd day after my mother-in-law moved in, I discovered more suspicious details. For example, the real Mary never drank coffee, but she and my mother-in-law often enjoyed it together. Also, Mary's favorite movie was Roman Holiday, but she claimed to prefer Titanic. The strangest thing is, Mary used to despise her cousin Tom when she was alive, but now he visits frequently and chats and laughs with Mary as if they're old friends. I told Frank about these discoveries. Buddy, things are getting more and more suspicious, Frank frowned. Are you sure you want to keep going like this? Why not just expose her directly? It's not the right time yet. I want to find out what they're really after. The private detective's investigation also made progress. The so-called old Chinese doctor who had saved Mary did not exist at all, and Mary's whereabouts over the past 3 years were completely untraceable. More importantly, the private detective uncovered a shocking fact during the investigation. Mary's cousin Tom was deeply in debt from gambling, and the painting Eternity under my name, worth over $6 million, was his only hope for quick cash. They're after your painting, the private detective asserted, and this fake Mary is likely a professional identity fraudster, hired to win your trust. I took a deep breath and decided to take the initiative. That afternoon, I pretended to go out, but secretly returned home and hid in the study. Sure enough, Mary and her cousin Tom were whispering to each other in the living room. It's taking too long, Tom said irritably. How much longer until he sells the painting? Don't worry, she soothed him. I'm already pregnant, and now he completely believes I'm Mary. In a little while, I'll say I want to move to a better neighborhood for the sake of the baby, and then we'll naturally need to sell the painting to raise money. You're really pregnant? That wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident, but it works to our advantage. George wants a child so badly. Does Annie know the truth? She only knows we're trying to scam money, not the specific plan. But she hates George, thinks he caused her daughter's death, so she's more than happy to help. I clenched my fists. So my mother-in-law had always believed that Mary's accident was somehow my fault. In fact, we did argue over something trivial that day, and Mary stormed out in anger. I didn't try to stop her. But I never imagined it would be the last time I'd see her. You don't actually have feelings for George, do you? Tom suddenly asked. She was silent for a moment. It's just part of the job. Besides, I owe you, and I won't go back on my word. Good then. Don't forget how we're splitting the money once we get it. Their conversation confirmed my suspicions. This was all an elaborate scheme, with my eternity as the target. In the days that followed, I pretended everything was normal while secretly making preparations. I contacted the police, arranged for evidence-gathering equipment, and found the last piece Mary had left before she died, a silver necklace that had never been made public, engraved with an anniversary date only the two of us knew. 2 weeks later, my art exhibition was held as scheduled. As planned, Mary brought up the idea of moving, hinting that I could sell Eternity. I pretended to agree and said I would auction the painting on the last day of the exhibition. This is a surprise I prepared for you, I said on the eve of the exhibition, taking out a delicate box. To celebrate the new life we're about to begin. She opened the box in surprise, and inside was the silver necklace. It's beautiful, thank you. She smiled as she prepared to put it on. Wait, I stopped her. Aren't you going to look at the engraving on the back? She turned the necklace over, and her face suddenly went pale. What's wrong? Don't you like it? I asked, feigning ignorance. No, I really like it. It's just, I'm a bit moved. She forced a smile, but didn't know how to explain that she couldn't recognize the significance of that date. See you tomorrow. Get some good rest, and don't forget to wear this necklace. I kissed her forehead and whispered in her ear, after all, this is your final design. Her body visibly stiffened for a moment, but she kept smiling. Of course, I cherish it very much. Tomorrow, the truth will come to light. On the day of the exhibition, the place was packed with people. My painting, Eternity, was displayed in the most prominent spot, right next to the last batch of jewelry designs Mary had created before her death. Mary held my arm, flawlessly playing the role of my wife as always. She had even gone out of her way to wear Mary's favorite white dress and the silver necklace I had given her last night. My mother-in-law and Tom were there too. The three of them exchanged glances from time to time, clearly waiting for the perfect moment. Frank appeared as planned, pretending to be extremely interested in Eternity and asking me about the auction details. The auction will begin promptly at 4 in the afternoon, I replied with a smile. This painting means a great deal to me, and I hope it finds someone who truly appreciates it. Mary immediately chimed in. Yes, although it's hard to part with it, this is a necessary decision for our future. I noticed she glanced at Tom, who gave a barely perceptible nod. At 3:30 in the afternoon, the projector in the center of the exhibition hall lit up. This was the special segment I had arranged. Ladies and gentlemen, I stood in front of Eternity. Before the auction begins, I'd like to share a little story about this painting. Mary's photo appeared on the projection screen, a group picture from her last birthday party before she passed away. 3 years ago, my wife Mary died in an accident. I created this painting, Eternity, in her memory. The woman in the painting has her back to the viewer, forever gazing into the distance, symbolizing a longing I can never reach. A soft sigh rippled through the crowd. Mary stood beside me, matching my words with a sorrowful expression. However, a month ago, a miracle happened. I turned to look at Mary. My wife came back. The whole room erupted in astonishment, and many people curiously sized up, Mary. This is my wife, Mary. I took her hand and stepped forward. Back from the dead, it's truly the greatest blessing heaven could have given me. She smiled and nodded to everyone, while my mother-in-law and Tom stood by with smug expressions. However, my tone suddenly shifted. Amidst my joy, a question arose. Is she really Mary? The entire room fell silent. Mary's hand trembled slightly in my palm. So, I did some investigating. The projector switched to a set of comparison photos. On the left was the real Mary. On the right was a photo of her. They look exactly the same, don't they? But I clicked the remote, and the photo was enlarged, the details highlighted. The position of the piercing on the left ear was slightly different, the arch of the eyebrows subtly varied, and the fine lines at the corners of the eyes ran in different directions. These are details that even professional plastic surgery cannot fully replicate. Mary tried to pull her hand away, but I held on tightly. My mother-in-law and Tom also began to grow anxious, glancing toward the exit. More importantly, the real Mary has a feature that cannot be copied. I turned to Mary. The necklace I gave you last night has a date engraved on the back. Can you tell everyone what that date is? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. That was the due date of our first child, the one we lost. I spoke softly, my voice trembling with emotion. Mary designed this necklace to commemorate the baby we never got to meet. The date was our secret, only Mary and I knew. The room fell utterly silent. Mary turned deathly pale, my mother-in-law's eyes widened, and Tom had already started edging toward the door. What surprised me even more, I continued, was that the real Mary could never get pregnant due to an underdeveloped uterus. Yet this, Mary claims she's already 2 months along. I let go of her hand and took a step back. So, who are you really? A flicker of despair flashed in Mary's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. I am Mary, it's just that old Chinese doctor. The non-existent old Chinese doctor, right? I sneered. Just like the non-existent amnesia, the non-existent miraculous recovery. I turned toward the projection screen. Let's see the truth. The screen played the secretly recorded video of her conversation with Tom, their discussion on how to swindle eternity, clearly audible. This isn't. She tried to explain, but my mother-in-law had already rushed forward. Who are you really? My mother-in-law screamed. You're not my daughter? Auntie, stop pretending, I said calmly. You know she's not Mary. You just wanted to get back at me, didn't you? My mother-in-law's face turned pale. I didn't know she was going to impersonate Mary. Tom just said he needed help to scam some money. Police. Don't move. Several plainclothes officers emerged from the crowd, blocking Tom as he tried to escape. Amid the chaos, Mary took the opportunity to shove me aside and run toward the exit. I chased after her and caught up in the parking lot. Tell me, who are you really? She finally stopped, turned to face me, tears welling in her eyes. My name is Luna. I'm an actress. Tom found me and said if I helped trick you out of a painting, he'd give me $1 million. I needed the money for my sister's medical treatment. Why did they choose me? Why Mary? She shook her head. I don't know. They gave me a lot of information, photos, videos, even your chat logs. I was just following the script. The police arrived and took her away. I stood where I was, gazing at the distant sky, my heart a tumult of emotions. Back in the exhibition hall, the crowd had already dispersed, leaving only Frank and a few police officers. It's all been cleared up, Frank walked over. Tom owed money to loan sharks and was desperate. Your mother-in-law always resented you for not saving Mary, so she helped them plan the whole thing. I walked up to eternity, gently caressing the back of the woman in the painting. Mary, I can finally give you an answer. The police left with the evidence. Frank patted me on the shoulder. What do you plan to do next? I took a deep breath. Prepare for the final painting. What will it be called? The Pursuit. I said softly. This time, I'll paint her face, not just her back. After the case was solved, my life seemed to return to where it was 3 years ago. Eternity was temporarily held by the court as crucial evidence. Tom and Luna were arrested for fraud, and my mother-in-law was investigated as an accomplice. The prosecution wants you to testify in court, the officer called to inform me. The trial is scheduled for early next month. I agreed, though I was utterly exhausted inside. After exposing the deception, I thought I would feel the thrill of revenge, but what I felt instead was a profound emptiness. Those days spent with Mary that month had allowed me to feel a trace of warmth in life again, even if that warmth was born of lies. Frank often came to see me, worried I might fall into despair once more. I told him not to worry, that I was working on a new piece, The Pursuit. Are you really going to paint Mary's face from the front? Frank asked curiously. For the past 3 years, you've always refused to do that. It's time, I replied. We can't live in the past forever. I moved out of the apartment I had shared with Mary and returned to the old house in the suburbs, the place where the real Mary and I had first made our home. The dust-laden memories in the house brought me both pain and comfort. Mary's studio remained just as she had left it, design sketches scattered across the table, unfinished jewelry drafts pinned to the drawing board. One afternoon, while sorting through Mary's belongings, I discovered an encrypted external hard drive. After several attempts, I finally unlocked it using our wedding anniversary as the password. Inside were backups of Mary's design works, along with some personal photos and videos. One folder in particular caught my attention. Inside a folder named Plan was a series of jewelry design sketches, labeled George's Birthday Special Project. It was then I remembered that, in the months before Mary passed away, she often spoke mysteriously about giving me an unparalleled birthday surprise. Leafing through these design drafts, I couldn't help but be moved to tears. Mary had planned to design a jewelry collection inspired by my paintings over the years, with each piece corresponding to a representative work from my artistic career. The last page was a sketch of a ring, with a dark red stone set in the center, its edges adorned with tiny diamonds, closely resembling the sunrise in my early work, Dawn. This is blood amber? I examined the notes carefully, confirming the name of this rare gemstone. Mary's designs had always been bold, but blood amber is extremely rare in the Chinese market, almost impossible to acquire. How did she obtain such a material? As I continued searching, I found a series of email correspondence screenshots. Mary had actually contacted a gemstone dealer in Myanmar, commissioning the blood amber specifically for this ring. The last email showed that the gem had already been shipped, but the date was exactly 1 week before Mary's death. I immediately called Frank. Help me check if there was a package sent from Myanmar 3 years ago, addressed to Mary. 2 days later, Frank brought news. The package did exist, but since no one signed for it, it was returned. However, according to the shipping records, it was resent a month ago, this time addressed to you. What? I was completely confused. I haven't received any package. Check your old apartment? Frank suggested. Back at my old apartment, the manager told me there was indeed a package, but it had been signed for by Mary. She said it was a surprise for you, so she didn't notify you, the manager explained. This meant Luna had taken the blood amber. I rushed to the detention center and requested to see Luna. Separated by glass, she looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but still wore that face so similar to Mary's. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. A month ago, you signed for a package from Myanmar. There was a blood amber inside. I want to know where it is. She looked surprised. How did you know? Tom asked me to sign for it. He said it was some precious gem. He took it. My heart sank. Tom was deep in gambling debt. A precious blood amber would be a windfall for him. He had probably sold it long ago. That blood amber is very important to me, I said softly. It was the last gift my wife left me. Luna was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, maybe it's not that bad. Tom said the stone has flaws, its value is greatly reduced, and he hasn't found a suitable buyer yet. Hope was rekindled. If Tom hadn't sold the blood amber yet, maybe there was still a chance to get it back. Do you know where he might hide it? Luna hesitated for a moment. He has a safe deposit box in a self-storage facility on the east side of the city. After getting the address, I immediately contacted the officer in charge of the case and explained the situation. Since Tom was involved in a large sum of money, the police quickly approved the search request. Mr. George, we've found the safe deposit box, the officer said over the phone. Inside, we did find the blood amber you described, as well as some other evidence. A few hours later, I retrieved the blood amber at the police station. It was even more beautiful than I had imagined. Within the dark red core, wisps of mist seemed to swirl, shifting strangely under the light. This was the birthday gift Mary had so carefully chosen for me, waiting for 3 years. Back home, I carefully placed the blood amber beside the canvas of the pursuit. The painting was already more than half finished, Mary's face emerging from the blur into clarity, yet it still felt like something was missing. Watching the blood amber glimmer faintly under the light, I suddenly understood how I should complete the painting. The creation of the pursuit entered its final stage. I decided to break convention and incorporate the blood amber into the artwork. This would not only be a portrait, but a hybrid piece that fused painting with the art of jewelry. Are you sure you want to do this? Frank frowned. That blood amber is priceless. That's exactly why, I said firmly. Mary chose it for me. She wanted to inspire an unparalleled masterpiece. I will fulfill her wish. For 2 whole weeks, I worked day and night, neglecting sleep and food. I cut the blood amber into thin slices and inlaid them at the spot of Mary's eyes on the canvas, making her gaze truly come alive. I used a special technique to blend the surrounding paint, creating a harmonious transition with the gemstone. From certain angles, the entire painting seemed to be imbued with life, and Mary's expression would shift depending on where the viewer stood. On the day I finished the piece, Frank brought news. Luna had been sentenced to 3 years in prison, but due to her good attitude in confessing, she might serve only 1.5 years. Tom, involved in multiple fraud cases, was sentenced to 7 years. My mother-in-law, as an accomplice, received a suspended sentence. The case is finally over, Frank said. Are you planning to exhibit your painting? Yes. Next month there will be a solo exhibition at the National Art Museum, and The Pursuit will be the grand finale. The curator couldn't stop praising this piece, believing it represents the innovative direction of contemporary art and marks the pinnacle of my career. Indeed, this painting, which incorporates Mary's jewelry design concepts, is in some sense a creation we made together. On the eve of the exhibition, I checked the arrangement in the gallery alone one last time, making sure every piece was perfectly lit and positioned. When I reached The Pursuit, I couldn't help but stop and gaze at it. Mary's face was vividly lifelike, her eyes inlaid with blood amber gleaming under the spotlight, as if she were smiling at me. For the first time in 3 years, I faced her directly, no longer painting only her back. Mr. George, a stranger's voice called from behind. Sorry to disturb you, but the gallery has been cleared. He turned around to see a young woman dressed in the museum's staff uniform. And you are? I'm the new curator, responsible for security in your exhibition area, she explained with a smile. I really like your work, especially this piece, The Pursuit. Thank you. I nodded. I'll be leaving soon. She didn't leave, but continued to gaze at the painting. That red gem is beautiful, almost as if it's alive. It's blood amber, I explained, a very rare gemstone. I know, she said softly, top-grade blood amber from Myanmar, containing plant fossils, extremely rare. I looked at her in surprise. You know a lot about jewelry? She smiled. I study jewelry design. I'm just working part-time here. For some reason, Mary suddenly came to mind. She, too, had an almost obsessive passion for and expertise in gemstones. If you don't mind me asking, who is the woman in this painting? She asked. My wife, I replied. She passed away 3 years ago. She was a jewelry designer. I'm very sorry, she said sincerely, then gestured toward the blood amber. This gem must mean a great deal to you. It was the last birthday gift she chose for me before she died, but I only found it recently. She nodded thoughtfully. Setting it into her portrait is the best way to remember her. For some reason, talking with this unfamiliar woman brought me a strange sense of calm. Perhaps it was her love for jewelry that reminded me of Mary. Sorry, I have to continue my rounds. She glanced at her watch. See you tomorrow, Mr. George. See you tomorrow, I replied, watching her leave. On the way home, I felt an unusual peace. The completion of The Pursuit seemed to mark the end of my search for Mary as well. Not forgetting, but remembering her forever in another way. The next day, the exhibition's opening ceremony attracted numerous figures from the art world and the media. The Pursuit undoubtedly became the center of attention, with people marveling at this innovative form of artistic expression. Amid the crowd, I noticed that curator standing aside, watching as well. Sunlight streamed through the skylight of the gallery, falling upon her, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw Mary's shadow. No, I shook my head, warning myself not to be deceived by mere resemblance. There would never be another Mary in this world, just as there would never be another unique blood amber. After the exhibition, the pursuit was purchased by an anonymous collector for an astronomical price. I donated all the proceeds to a foundation supporting students in jewelry design, establishing a scholarship in Mary's name. Life slowly moved forward, and I began to accept new commissions and create new works. Occasionally, I would think of that curator with a unique insight into jewelry, wondering if she was still working at the art museum. Until one day, I received an email from HL. There were no words, only an image. A sketch of a ring design, the style strikingly similar to Mary's unfinished series. My heart raced as I replied immediately. Who is this? The response came quickly. Yesterday, you brushed past me by the cafe on the street corner, but you didn't recognize me. If you want to know more, wait for me at the museum entrance at noon tomorrow. Is it that librarian? How could she have a design so reminiscent of Mary's style? Filled with anxiety and anticipation, I decided to accept the invitation and find out for myself. The next day at noon, I arrived at the art museum half an hour early. The sun was shining, and small groups of visitors were coming and going from the exhibition hall. But there was no sign of the mysterious person. Just as I began to suspect this might be some kind of prank, a faint trace of perfume drifted by, a scent unfamiliar to me, yet it inexplicably reminded me of Mary. Mr. George, thank you for coming. The voice behind me made me turn around. It was the curator. Today, she wasn't wearing her uniform, but a simple white dress, completely different from Mary's style when she was alive. Did you send the email? I asked directly. She nodded. There are some things I want to tell you, but not here. Will you come with me? We walked through the small park beside the art museum and arrived at a secluded cafe. The whole time, I kept observing her. Her mannerisms, the way she walked, none of it resembled Mary. Yet her sensitivity to detail and her focused attention gave me a strange sense of familiarity. Who are you, really? The moment we sat down, I couldn't wait to ask. My name is Nicole. She looked me straight in the eye. I'm Mary's student. This answer caught me off guard. Mary had indeed taught jewelry design part-time at the Design Academy before she passed away, but she had never mentioned having any particularly close students. I took her advanced design class the year before she passed, Nicole explained. Her guidance benefited me for a lifetime. That still doesn't explain why your designs resemble her style so much, I said, half convinced. Nicole took a folder out of her bag. These are all notes from Ms. Nicole's class and her feedback on my work. You can look at the handwriting and confirm that it's really hers. I carefully examined the materials. It was indeed Mary's handwriting. There were even traces of the pale purple ink she habitually used. Before Ms. Nicole passed away, she was guiding me on my graduation project, Nicole continued. The theme was interwoven light and shadow, blending Eastern and Western aesthetic elements. She gave me a lot of valuable advice, and even showed me a sketch from a private project she was working on at the time. George's special birthday project? I blurted out. Nicole's eyes widened in surprise. You know about it? I only found out recently. I briefly explained the origin of the blood amber. I knew that blood amber would eventually find its way back to you, Nicole said with a smile. Nicole always said it was a destined gift. Is that why you contacted me? Because you saw the blood amber? Nicole was silent for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Not entirely. After Nicole passed away, I've been trying to carry on the design philosophy she taught me. Some time ago, I happened to see the news about your eternity being stolen, and then I saw someone impersonating Nicole. I thought I should tell you a few things. She took a letter out of her bag. This is the last letter Nicole gave me after class before she passed away. She said if her surprise plan went smoothly, I should show you this letter. If anything went wrong and she was gone, I should still make sure you see it. I took the envelope. It was indeed Mary's handwriting, and it read, "To my dearest husband." The envelope had already been opened. I didn't know what was in the letter at the time. I just kept it as Nicole instructed, Nicole explained. It wasn't until I saw the news that I opened it. I hope you won't blame me. I carefully took out the letter paper and unfolded it to read. Dear George, if you are reading this letter, perhaps my surprise plan has gone awry. Don't worry, it's just that the plan has changed, and the form of the gift may be different now. The blood amber I picked for you is said to be known as the Eye of Rebirth. Legend has it that looking at the world through it reveals truths that are often overlooked. I hope it can become a turning point in your artistic career, leading you to see new possibilities. All these years, your paintings have always depicted backs, as if you're afraid to face something head-on. I hope this gemstone will give you the courage to paint the front, to capture true emotions. No matter what happens, please remember, love does not disappear, it merely changes form, like this blood amber, which, after millions of years, transforms from resin into a gem, yet still shines. Forever loving you, Mary. The handwriting became a bit messy at the end, as if written in a hurry. I stroked the paper, as if I could feel Mary's emotions at that moment. Thank you, I said, my voice choked with emotion. This means a lot to me. You're welcome. I'm just fulfilling Ms. Nicole's request, Nicole said with a smile. Actually, there's one more thing I'd like to ask your help with. What is it? I'd like to apply for the Mary Scholarship you established, she said, taking a design portfolio out of her bag. This is my graduation project, combining Ms. Nicole's ideas with my own innovations. As I flipped through the portfolio, I was surprised to find that while these designs bore traces of Mary's influence, they also possessed a unique style and innovative touches. In particular, a series called Metamorphosis cleverly combined jewelry with transformable elements, allowing the pieces to change form according to the wearer's mood and occasion. This is outstanding, I praised sincerely. Mary would be proud of you. A hint of joy flashed in Nicole's eyes. Really? I've always worried I couldn't live up to her expectations. You've already moved beyond the learning stage and developed your own style. That's exactly what she hoped to see. As we talked, sunlight streamed through the window and fell on Nicole. In that moment, I seemed to understand something. When Mary spoke of love changing its form, perhaps she wasn't just referring to the blood amber, but also to her passion for art and its legacy. Luna tried to impersonate Mary by mimicking her appearance, but she could never truly replicate who she was. Nicole, on the other hand, looked nothing like Mary, yet she inherited a part of her artistic vision and spirit. Perhaps this is the true gift Mary left me, not the blood amber, but a new possibility, a path out of the past. Nicole's graduation exhibition was held in a small gallery. Though the space was modest, it was exquisitely arranged. Her works were divided into 3 series, representing the past, the present, and the future, forming a complete narrative. This is a brilliant idea, I sincerely praised. From tradition to contemporary and then to the future, it showcases the evolution and possibilities of jewelry design. Nicole smiled and nodded. This was inspired by teacher Nicole. She always says that good design should look back at history, be grounded in the present, and look forward to the future. As I walked through the exhibition hall, I noticed a special display case in the corner, containing only one piece, a seemingly simple ring with a small red gemstone set in the center. This is. I leaned in to read the label, which said, in memory, dedicated to teacher Mary. Yes, I made it from a small piece of blood amber I bought with my own savings, Nicole explained. It can't compare to the quality of yours, but it's also from Myanmar. I examined the design of the ring closely. Clean, powerful lines, with fine silver threads encircling the blood amber, as if protecting the central gem, yet also seeming to radiate light outward. This is very similar to Mary's final design style, I said softly, but it also has your own unique touch. I wanted to create a piece that could both commemorate teacher Nicole and showcase my own style, Nicole explained. The blood amber represents her influence, while the outer design is the direction of my own development. The exhibition attracted quite a few industry insiders, including some well-known figures from the jewelry design world. After viewing the exhibition, an older female designer approached Nicole and offered her an internship opportunity. I stood by, genuinely happy for Nicole. In the evening, as the exhibition was drawing to a close, Frank arrived as well. Seeing me with Nicole, he gave me a knowing smile. New friend? He asked me quietly. Mary's student, I explained simply. Very talented. Frank nodded without asking further questions. After touring the exhibition, he gave high praise to Nicole's work. It blends traditional and modern elements, demonstrating both technical skill and artistic expression, quite rare. Nicole thanked him politely. This wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of teacher Nicole and teacher George. After the exhibition, The three of us went to a nearby restaurant for dinner. During the meal, Frank talked about recent trends in the art market, while Nicole shared her insights on contemporary jewelry design. The conversation was light and pleasant, and I realized it had been a long time since I had relaxed and chatted with others like this. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank received an urgent call and left early. Only Nicole and I remained in the restaurant, and the atmosphere suddenly became a bit quiet. Mr. George, Nicole hesitated for a moment before speaking. I've always had a question I wanted to ask you. What is it? After you finished the pursuit, what are you planning to create next? The question caught me off guard. To be honest, ever since the pursuit, I haven't had any new inspiration. That painting seemed to have drained all my emotions and creativity. I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. It might take some time to find a new direction. Nicole nodded thoughtfully. Nicole once said that the hardest thing for an artist isn't creating a stunning masterpiece, but finding a way forward after reaching the peak. She really did say that, I recalled with a smile. Mary always saw further than I did. Maybe, Nicole said softly, you could try a new direction that combines your work with jewelry design? Like in The Pursuit, but taking it even further. I recalled what Mary mentioned in her letter about seeing new possibilities, and suddenly I was inspired. You mean, creating a series of works that combine painting and jewelry? Exactly. Nicole said excitedly, your paintings create emotion in two-dimensional space, while jewelry gives it tangible form in the three-dimensional world. The combination of the two would have an astonishing effect. The more we talked, the more engaged we became, even sketching a few concept designs on the restaurant's napkins. Nicole's ideas were fresh and bold, perfectly aligning with my artistic vision, yet bringing a new perspective. As we left the restaurant, Nicole suddenly said, I have to confess something. I looked at her in confusion. I reached out to you not only to deliver Nicole's letter, but also for a personal reason. I hope to learn from you, she said candidly. I want to become a designer like Nicole, someone who not only creates beautiful works but also perfectly blends art with emotion. Her sincerity moved me. You're already on that path, and you're doing very well. Then, may I consult you often? She asked a little nervously. Of course, I'd be delighted. On the way home, a series of new works already began to take shape in my mind. A cross-disciplinary art that fuses painting and jewelry, both as a tribute to Mary and as a new starting point in my artistic career. That night, I had a dream. In the dream, Mary stood in a halo of blood-red light, smiling at me and saying, See, I knew you would find a new direction. When I woke up, I got out of bed immediately and began sketching for the new series. I decided to name it Rebirth. Not only representing the ancient life forever preserved in blood amber, but also symbolizing the rebirth of my artistic career, as well as the inheritance and development of Mary's artistic vision. A week later, I submitted a new series proposal to the gallery and received an enthusiastic response. The curator even suggested holding a special exhibition themed Between Dimensions, a dialogue between painting and jewelry. For this project, I invited Nicole to join the team as a jewelry design consultant. She had just graduated from design school and was both excited and nervous about the opportunity. Am I really up to the task? She asked me in the studio. You understand Mary's design philosophy better than anyone, I assured her. That's exactly what I need. In the days that followed, we worked at a feverish pace. We created during the day and discussed at night, sometimes even working through until dawn. Nicole's ideas flowed endlessly, and I transformed those thoughts into concrete artistic expressions. In the process, I rediscovered the pure joy of creation that I hadn't felt in a long time. One late night, when we finally finished the design for our first piece, Nicole clapped her hands excitedly. This is amazing. Teacher Nicole will definitely love it. At the mention of Mary, she suddenly realized her slip and looked at me nervously. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's all right, I said with a smile. I think Mary really would like it. She always hoped I could step out of my comfort zone and try new ways of expressing myself. Nicole let out a sigh of relief, then hesitantly asked, Professor George, may I ask you a personal question? What is it? When you faced the woman impersonating Professor Nicole, how did you see through her? I mean, from the news reports, she seemed like an exact copy of Professor Nicole. I pondered for a moment. Superficial resemblance is easy to achieve, But a true personality cannot be duplicated. Mary's perception of art, her attitude toward life, the way she handled details, these were all unique. Just like a work of art, Nicole mused, no matter how perfect a replica is, it can never capture the soul of the original. Exactly. We worked through the night again, and finally established the overall framework for the Rebirth series. 7 pieces, each blending elements of painting and jewelry, together telling a story of loss and recovery, death and rebirth. As our collaboration deepened, my relationship with Nicole gradually shifted from teacher and student to partners, both mentor and friend. Sometimes, when the light traced the gentle contours of her focused profile, I would unconsciously think of Mary. But soon, I realized that this association wasn't due to any physical resemblance, but rather that same dedication and passion for art. "George, you look much more spirited lately," Frank remarked at a gathering. "It's been a while since I've seen you so full of life." "Yeah, the new project has helped me rediscover the joy of creating." "Nicole's a good girl," Frank said meaningfully. "Talented, and she really understands you." I understood his implication, but just smiled without responding. There was indeed a special understanding between Nicole and me, but it was more rooted in our shared passion for art than anything else. At least for now. The creation of the Rebirth series took 3 months, longer than expected, but the results were stunning. Each piece was a perfect fusion of painting and jewelry art, offering both the pleasure of viewing as a flat image and the discovery of 3-dimensional effects brought by the jewelry elements from different angles. A week before the exhibition opened, I received an unexpected visitor, Luna. She had served her sentence and was released early. She looked much more haggard than the last time we met, but her eyes were clearer. "I came to apologize to you in person." She stood at the studio door, her voice low, "for everything I have done." I didn't respond immediately, but simply invited her in to sit down. "I know that an apology can't make up for the loss," she continued, "but I want you to know that I truly regret it." "How is your sister's illness?" I asked. She looked up in surprise. You know. I guessed. "You said you needed money for a reason, and I think that must have been true." "Yes," she nodded. "My sister's surgery was a success, and now she's fully recovered. For the past 3 years, I've been thinking about how to make up for my mistakes. Even though I may never be able to." I was silent for a moment, then said, "You know, in a way, your appearance actually helped me." "What do you mean?" "It forced me to confront the past, to re-examine my memories with Mary, and ultimately to find a way forward." I pointed to the sketches of the Rebirth series on the wall and briefly explained this new project. Luna listened quietly, a look of genuine respect in her eyes. "I'm glad you were able to find a new beginning from that nightmare," she said at last. "I hope I can find my own path to rebirth as well." As she left, she handed me a small package. "These are some simple pieces of jewelry I made in prison. The craftsmanship is rough, but each one represents my remorse and blessings. I hope you can accept them." Opening the package, I found several small trinkets handmade from fine wire and colorful glass beads. Though simple, it was clear the creator had poured their heart into them. Nicole happened to come into the studio at that moment. Seeing the trinkets, she asked curiously, "What are these?" I told her about Luna's visit. "You forgave her?" Nicole was a bit surprised. "Not exactly forgiveness," I said thoughtfully. "It's more like understanding. Everyone has their own hardships and choices. What's important is how we learn and grow from our mistakes." Nicole nodded pensively, picking up a piece of jewelry to examine it closely. "The craftsmanship is rough, but the concept is ingenious. This person seems to have a talent for design." "Perhaps," I said. "Everyone has the possibility of being reborn." On the day of the exhibition opening, numerous figures from the art and jewelry worlds gathered together. The Rebirth series received unprecedented acclaim. Critics called it a model of cross-disciplinary art, and the gallery owner was overjoyed, announcing plans for a nationwide tour. In the crowd, I saw Luna. She was dressed simply, standing quietly in a corner, admiring the exhibits. Our eyes met in the air. She nodded slightly, then walked away. "Who was that?" Nicole asked, standing beside me. "Someone searching for rebirth," I replied. Nicole seemed to understand and asked no more. We stood side by side before the pursuit, watching the blood amber refract a strange light under the lamps, like the silent burning of life's flame. "Thank you," I whispered to Nicole. Without you, this series might never have come into being. It was your philosophy that guided us, Teacher Nicole, she replied modestly. I was just fortunate enough to be the messenger. In that moment, I suddenly understood the true meaning of what Mary had written in her letter. Love has changed its form. Love exists not only in memory and longing, but also in inheritance and innovation, shining brightly in every spark of artistic creation. And I, at last, had learned how to begin anew after loss, to embrace rebirth while still searching. The success of the exhibition exceeded everyone's expectations. In just 1 month, the Rebirth series was reported on by major media outlets and even attracted the attention of the international art world. A renowned auction house extended an olive branch to me, hoping to include several pieces in their annual highlight auction. This is an unprecedented opportunity, Frank said excitedly. If the deal goes through, you'll become a top player in the contemporary art market. I wasn't particularly concerned with commercial success, but I did feel the joy of having my work widely recognized. More importantly, this series opened up a new artistic path for me, freeing me from the creative shackles of the past 3 years. Nicole benefited as well. As the project's jewelry design consultant, she received high praise from the industry. Several well-known jewelry brands reached out to her, hoping she would join their design teams. Which offer are you planning to accept? One night, as we were tidying up the studio together, I asked her. To be honest, I'm still hesitating. Nicole paused her work. These are all great opportunities, but what? But I want to keep working with you. She looked straight into my eyes. Rebirth is just the beginning, isn't it? Her candor surprised me a little. Indeed, the success of this series had opened up many new creative possibilities for us, but I wasn't sure if I should continue such a close working relationship. You should consider your own career development, I said tactfully. These opportunities are very rare for young designers. Nicole seemed to sense my hesitation and nodded gently. I understand. In the days that followed, we were both busy and rarely had the chance to talk alone. A week later, Nicole told me she had decided to accept an invitation from a French jewelry brand and would be going to Paris to work for 2 years. Congratulations, I said sincerely. It's a very good choice. Thank you, she replied with a smile, though a fleeting, elusive emotion flashed in her eyes. I think this is the best arrangement for both of us. Before Nicole left, we held a small farewell party. Frank, the curator, and a few mutual friends came. The atmosphere was warm, tinged with a hint of sadness. After a few rounds of drinks, Frank found an opportunity to pull me aside. Are you really going to just let her go like this? What do you mean? I pretended not to understand. Don't play dumb, man, Frank said bluntly. You have feelings for her. That's obvious. That's just professional rapport, I argued. Is that so? Frank looked at me meaningfully. Then why have you been so distracted ever since she decided to go to France? I was at a loss for words. In fact, these past few days I had indeed felt an inexplicable sense of loss, but I kept telling myself it was only because I had lost an excellent partner. I know what you're worried about. Frank lowered his voice. You feel like you're letting Mary down, don't you? I remained silent. He had touched upon the deepest concern in my heart. Mary has been gone for 3 years now. Frank gently patted my shoulder. She would want you to be happy. After the party ended, I walked Nicole home. The night was tranquil as water, and the city lights flowed around us. Thank you for your help and guidance these past few months. Nicole stopped at the entrance of her apartment building. This experience has meant so much to me. I should be thanking you, I said sincerely. Without you, the Rebirth series would never have been completed. We fell into silence, as if both searching for the right words to say goodbye. My flight is the morning after tomorrow, Nicole finally said. I still have some things to take care of tomorrow. So, this is probably the last time we'll see each other. 2 years will pass quickly. I tried to make my voice sound light. Paris is a beautiful city. You'll like it there. She nodded, a complex emotion flickering in her eyes. Professor George, there's something I've always wanted to tell you, but never found the right opportunity. What is it? I chose to study jewelry design because I saw Nicole's works. She took a deep breath, or more precisely, because I saw the pieces Nicole designed for you. The way she perfectly fused love and art moved me deeply. I didn't know that, I said in surprise. I've always hoped that one day I could be like Nicole, creating art filled with emotion. Nicole continued, her words coming faster. as if afraid she might lose her courage. But now I realize that what I want even more is to create for a specific person, just like Nicole created for you. I understood her implication, and my heart suddenly began to race. Nicole, please don't respond, she gently interrupted me. I just wanted you to know before I leave. No matter how you feel right now, remember that starting over is not a betrayal of the past, but a way of cherishing life. With that, she rose up on her tiptoes and softly kissed my cheek, then quickly turned and walked into the apartment building, leaving me standing alone in the night, my mind in turmoil. After returning home, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep, replaying Nicole's words and that gentle kiss over and over in my mind. Suddenly, I remembered a small box in the study, where Mary's last complete letter was kept, a letter I had found while sorting through her belongings. But at the time, overwhelmed by grief, I never had the courage to open. Now, I finally mustered the courage to walk into the study and retrieve that delicate little box from the depths of the drawer. Inside lay a pale pink letter, bearing Mary's familiar handwriting. Dearest George, by the time you read this letter, you may find yourself at a crossroads in life, hesitating between moving forward or staying where you are. My greatest wish is that you can move bravely through life, as freely as your brush glides across the canvas. Love is not a shackle, but a liberation. Memory is not a burden, but a source of strength. If one day you meet someone who can rekindle the light in your eyes, please don't hesitate because of your longing for me. True love is wishing happiness for the other, even if there is no longer a place for oneself in that happiness. Remember, the days we loved each other were complete, with no need for regrets. And now, it's time to paint a new picture, my beloved. Forever loving you. Mary. Tears blurred my vision. It was as if Mary had foreseen my current situation and had already given me her blessing. She was always like this, always able to see further and more clearly than I could. At that moment, I made up my mind. Early the next morning, I drove straight to Nicole's apartment. Professor George? Nicole opened the door in surprise, clearly not expecting me. I have something to say to you. I looked her straight in the eyes, not as your teacher, but as George. I handed her Mary's letter. Nicole read it carefully, her expression shifting from surprise to being moved, and finally, her eyes grew moist. She truly was an extraordinary woman, Nicole said softly, handing the letter back to me. Yes, she was. I nodded. That's exactly why I believe her words. Nicole, cancel your plans for Paris. Stay and continue our collaboration, will you? Nicole looked at me in shock. Are you serious? I've never been more serious, I said quietly. Rebirth is not just the name of an artwork, it's a possibility in life. Are you willing to explore that possibility with me? Her answer was a firm embrace, warm and real, like the first ray of sunlight after a long winter. In that moment, I felt as if Mary was somewhere, smiling down on us, blessing this new beginning. Life is like that blood amber, enduring countless ages of change and sedimentation, ultimately transforming into an eternal radiance. And I, at last, understood what true pursuit is, what true rebirth means. A year later, Nicole and I unveiled our second joint project, Interwoven, at the National Art Museum. This series was even bolder and more innovative than Rebirth, blending Eastern and Western aesthetics with various art forms. Critics hailed it as a significant breakthrough in contemporary art. At the opening ceremony, Nicole held my arm as we faced the media interviews and congratulations from the audience together. She wore a simple white dress, and around her neck was the Eye of Rebirth necklace we designed together. She completed the jewelry part based on my painting. Your collaboration seems even more in sync than your last project, a reporter asked with a suggestive smile. Nicole glanced at me, and we exchanged a smile. Yes, both in art and in life, we've found the perfect balance. This indirect answer drew a round of good-natured laughter from the reporters present. My relationship with Nicole was no longer a secret, but we always kept a low profile, letting the public's attention remain focused on our artistic creations. After the exhibition, we drove out to a small hill in the countryside. There stood an ancient oak tree, beneath which Mary's ashes were laid to rest. This was the place we chose, rather than a traditional cemetery, natural, peaceful, just like Mary herself. Mary, the exhibition was a great success today, I said softly to the stone beneath the tree. Nicole's designs were admired by everyone, just as you once predicted. Nicole crouched down and placed a bouquet of white daisies in front of the stone. Teacher Nicole, I've been working hard to become the kind of designer you hoped I would be. I hope you can be proud of me. A gentle breeze stirred, and the oak's leaves rustled softly, as if it were Mary's reply. On the way back, Nicole suddenly said, "I've been thinking about something." "What is it?" "If that woman who pretended to be Ms. Nicole hadn't appeared, you might never have found the blood amber, never created the pursuit, and we might never have met." Her words made me fall into deep thought. Indeed, it was the series of events triggered by that deception that ultimately led to everything now. It feels as if, in the unseen, some force has been orchestrating it all. "Perhaps that's the irony of fate," I said softly. "Sometimes, the worst beginnings can lead us to the best endings." When I returned home, I received an unexpected package. Upon opening it, I found a delicate little box containing a handmade ring. Though simple, the craftsmanship had improved greatly compared to the pieces I had seen before. There was a note attached. "Mr. George, thank you for your kindness and understanding a year ago, which gave me the courage to start over. Now I have found a job at a small jewelry shop, and my life is gradually getting back on track. This ring represents my gratitude, and I wish you happiness and well-being on your new path." "Luna," I handed the ring to Nicole. After examining it carefully, she remarked, "Her skills have improved a lot. She truly is talent." "Some mistakes in life shouldn't become permanent scars," I sighed. "Everyone deserves a second chance." That night, we sat in the studio, discussing ideas for the next series. Nicole suddenly proposed a bold idea. I was thinking, maybe we could try connecting the different stages of our work to create a complete narrative. From eternity to quest, then to rebirth, and intertwined, they're actually different phases in a person's life journey. "You mean?" "A complete story about loss, searching, rebirth, and integration," she explained excitedly, ultimately asking what is the most precious treasure in life. "Love." I finished her sentence. "No matter what form it takes." Nicole nodded, her eyes sparkling with creative fire. "We could call it the forms of love, an unprecedented artistic exploration." "Sounds like a long-term, ambitious project." "We have time," she smiled, holding my hand. "We have so much time." In that moment, I felt a powerful surge of creative inspiration, just like when I first began my artistic career years ago, filled with passion and possibility. But this time, I was not facing the blank canvas alone. 2 years later, the Forms of Love series was exhibited simultaneously in the world's 5 greatest art museums, causing an unprecedented sensation. Critics called it a milestone in contemporary art history, blending painting, sculpture, jewelry design, and other art forms to create an entirely new artistic language. The final piece of the exhibition was titled Eternal Ring, a massive circular canvas depicting every form of love in life, familial, platonic, romantic, and the love for art itself. The edge of the canvas was inlaid with gemstones of various sizes, and under certain lighting, these gems would cast light onto specific parts of the canvas, revealing another hidden layer of patterns. The centerpiece of this work is a massive blood amber. Through intricate optical design, the light it projects perfectly outlines 2 embracing figures. One is Mary, the other is Nicole, symbolizing the intersection of past and present, the fusion of memory and rebirth. On the closing day of the exhibition, in front of the Eternal Ring, I knelt on one knee and proposed to Nicole. The ring was crafted from the very blood amber Mary had once prepared for me, designed by my own hand and fashioned by the finest jeweler. "This ring carries the memories of the past and the hopes for the future," I whispered softly. "Nicole, will you be the eternal ring in my life?" Her tears sparkled under the spotlight. "I will." Amidst the cheers, I remembered what Mary once said, "Love does not disappear, it merely changes its form." Yes, love does not disappear. It exists in memories, in art, in every rebirth and new beginning. It traverses time and crosses space, like that blood amber which, after millions of years, still shines, forever retaining the original warmth and brilliance of life. This is the answer I have been searching for all along. Between loss and gain, between seeking and rebirth, love remains constant, only appearing in different forms along the journey of life. And all we need to do is bravely accept this gift, no matter how it comes to us. On the day of the wedding, the sky was a clear, washed blue. Beneath the ancient oak tree that had watched over Mary, We exchanged our vows. A gentle breeze stirred, making the leaves whisper as if blessings were drifting in from another world. No matter when or where, Nicole said softly, we'll always remember that it was she who brought us together. Yes, I squeezed her hand, and we will always cherish this gift. In the brilliant sunlight, the blood amber ring gleamed, radiant as life itself, enduring the passage of time, yet still shining bright.